Welcome to the Hundredth Monkey Radio with Tom and Ramon. We are recording this on June 2nd, 2014. And Ramon, this has been an absolutely gorgeous day here in the great Northwest here in the U.S. Probably it's got to be one of the only days in my memory for the last several years now that we've actually had blue skies all day long, and I didn't see them all polluted with chemtrails.
Yay!
I'm really surprised. No, I mean when I do see a clear sky and no crap up there, it's actually anomalous now.
Yeah, it's funny. I was with a couple of friends last week, and I was pointing out the chemtrails, and they thought that was natural. Huh. I was like, "Don't you see the grid line?" And then they thought it was just normal airplane stuff. And I said, "That's not normal."
How old are they?
Older than me.
Well, yeah, short memory then.
But yeah. Let me jump into some news thing here. You know how they put up those pictures, and this is from Wikipedia. This 256-year-old man. His name, what was his name? His name is Li Ching Yuan. He lived from 1677 to 1933. Now, I know a lot of people are going, what? The historical record shatters the myth that humans, with the aid of vaccines and modern medicine, are indeed living longer. This man ate only like wild ginseng and berries and wine rice. And they had... There was one professor who had looked up his records and saw that the government had, said happy birthday on his 150th and then happy birthday on his 200th birthday in 1877. Wow. So this, there we go. So me and Tom, I'm going to Tom's 100th birthday party. So anybody is still around for Tom's 100th birthday party, please come.
And I'm going to do the same for Ramon, which is what are you, 12 years younger than me, something like that?
Yeah, I'm 38 now.
Oh yeah, so 14 years younger than me. So I'll be 114 when I make it to Ramon's 100th birthday, and then we'll shoot for 200. We kind of talked about this a little earlier offline. There's something to that as far as the way we set ourselves up for our future. Our whole society, it's all the way things are presented to us. We're presented with society's view of old age and what that means and what it's supposed to look like. Now we're just flooded with things like Alzheimer's and Parkinson's and all these things you're supposed to get when you get old. And that's what we're being told. Well, if we can tell ourselves a different story, maybe we can actually live a different story. So Ramon and I are telling ourselves a story that we're gonna continue to shoot for the next 100-year marks for our birthday parties, and we're going to have some big bashes and see what we can do with that. I think I think we're going to set ourselves up for some surprising stuff, Ramon.
Yeah, maybe we should buy some really expensive shoes and put on the box. 100-year-old, put them on.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. I'll tell you what. I'll buy your 100th birthday present here real soon, and you buy my 100th birthday present real soon, and we'll just package them up, wrap them up, and we'll set them off to the side, and we'll hang on to them until that date arrives.
Like you said, it really it changes. It makes you look forward to getting older instead of the opposite, where people turn 30 and they turn 40 and 50, and it's just like. But anyway, let me move on to the news quickly here. An 8-year-old kid uses crystal grids to transmute negative energy and explain how it works. Now, if you look at this kid's YouTube while he's explaining this, he sounds like a young adult. And he really knows what he's talking about. He sets up this grid of different crystals, and he explains how all these crystals power up this big one, and then uses this other crystal as, so there's like he calls it like an energy explosion that goes around the earth, and cleans out all the negative energy and stuff like that. And he says that the reason why he knows how is because he can just, there's a point in the crystal where you put your finger and you put it next to your ear and you can hear, and it tells you what's it good for. And he says that the more powerful the crystal, he doesn't even have to touch it. So wow. It's just amazing. Like, how would he know that?
Yeah. So I'm guessing he would be a crystal child. Right? Yeah. So we got to love our labels, right?
Yeah. So here's another one that I'm not too certain about. It kind of looks like it. Basically, ancient Greek work shows what appears to be a laptop computer with USB ports. I'm trying to look for the year that this was supposedly made. I think it was like 100 something BC.
Oh, isn't that Sumerian?
No, it's Greek, according to this article. But there's a laptop. It kind of looks like a laptop, but you don't see any buttons or anything like that. So I question it a little bit, but it's kind of odd, if anything. And here's one that I really like because it's about my hometown, good old New York City. In Brooklyn, some people started putting together compost. So basically, when you throw out your trash, you throw out the compost in a compost bin, and this lady comes by, picks it up, and creates compost. So it's really cool because she put this together. This has nothing to do with the government and stuff like that. So it's amazing. And
grassroots.
Yeah. And that's it for the news. We have an amazing guest, which we're having a bit of trouble putting together.
Yeah, well, I think it was all on my end, though, me and my computer illiteracy. So anyways, we've got a great show for you guys tonight. We've got Philip Camelo with us tonight. He's a lawyer, a visionary futurist, and host of the popular radio show Conversations Beyond Science and Religion. It's a podcast at www.webtalkradio.net. And we're going to be talking about his book, The Collapse of Materialism, Visions of Science, Dreams of God. It's a culmination of decades of work committed to developing a new incredible scientific paradigm to unify the physical world of science with the metaphysics of religion. He lives with his wife and daughter in Glen Ellen, Illinois, and his website is thecollapseofmaterialism.com. Welcome to the 100th Monkey Radio, Philip Comella.
Hey, it's great being here, guys. Thanks a lot for having me.
Hey, you just recently here in the last couple of weeks started using your last name on your radio show, too. It kind of threw me off at first, too. I mean, you're so used to this is Philip Comella or Philip Meriton. Yeah.
Oh. Yeah. No, I know. I had to do it at some point in time.
Yeah.
And when the new book came out, it was decided to unify me into one person. So that's what it is. It's fun doing a double identity, but it got a little old. It was fun being Meriton. I'm still using it in my on my Skype address and some other things, but if in case I get too controversial, I'll always flip back to being Meriton. So
there you go.
I could hide under that name. So.
Hey, Philip, before we go too far, should I put you down for my 100th birthday?
Yeah, sure. Sure. I'd be happy to be invited.
All right. Okay, so we'd like to start things out with getting a little bit of background. What actually got you interested in, this work that you've put out here, The Collapse of Materialism?
Well, I think I have a deep driving desire to understand the world, as corny as that may sound. I mean, I studied philosophy. I have a degree in philosophy, and I always wanted to figure it out. And I thought that I came upon a good argument, a good idea in college, and I started writing a paper. I did what some people do, which is to take an independent study course and never finish the paper, which is not really a good thing if you want to get graded. But that paper became the book, The Collapse of Materialism. And the idea was to take the route of idealism instead of materialism. And, we tend to forget that about 400 or 500 years ago, idealism was really the leading metaphysics or view of the world. And ever since the time of Newton, we sort of branched off and we've gone down this materialistic road. So it all began in college, and it's something about me that I want to figure it out, and I want to put it down on a piece of paper and put it together as logically as I could and make it as forceful as I could using authorities and my legal training, and try to see if we could accelerate the movement to a new, more promising outlook. So that's what it's all about, Tom.
Right. So, did you? What was your religious upbringing?
I was raised Catholic. Like a lot of people were, and it had. I don't know if it really had a dramatic effect on me, except that I question. I read on your website a lot. Questioning ideas, questioning beliefs really begins everything.
Right.
If you just accept as gospel truth all the opinions and positions that we are fed as we grow up, then you'll live somebody else's life, just like you were saying at the top of the show. And so I still remember questioning a lot of things from my religious upbringing when I was young, and I think that questioning stance really is the underlying purpose of philosophy and law as well. Questioning and coming to your own conclusions, I think, is really the beginning of finding your own way and writing your own story.
Right. Yeah, I just started. I got to get this out real quick before I forget about it. I just recently began reading Plato's Republic for the first time. And as I started reading your book, I was like, oh my God, this just reminds me so much of Plato's Republic. I mean, I love the arguments, the way you argue and use logic to the detriment of materialists. But the logic that you use is fantastic. So kudos to you on that. I just had to put that out there. So for those who may not understand what the official term materialism actually means, would you go into that and kind of get that definition out there for us?
Yeah, okay. Well, materialism governs the way we think. It's sort of like the standby power, the theme of the story running in the background. What some of its basic principles are that ultimate reality reduces to a thing, to a particle, that all that is real are particles and forces. The example I like to give here is the God particle, and I think it's revealing that modern science looks for God in a particle, in the Large Hadron Collider in France, in Switzerland, the largest particle accelerator in the world. So materialism says that the ultimate reality is a thing, that there is no connection between mind and matter, or between spirit and the physical world. There's no connections. Thoughts and beliefs can't affect the body. They can't affect the world. And that we are separate from each other and from the world and from God. And so the key thing to remember about materialism is that materialism does not recognize the truth of spirituality. And this is why so many of the hardcore materialists, which happen to be the leading scientists in the world, such as Stephen Hawking and Richard Dawkins, that they are atheists, because in order to be a consistent materialist, you cannot believe in God. Okay? And so materialism is really the governing scientific worldview. The Big Bang Theory is another example of how materialism rules the world, rules the way we think, because the Big Bang says that we came from a distant explosion of matter and energy, and that's the ultimate source of everything. Not the mind of God, not the spirit, not the united mind, but this particle explosion. And so it's something, Tom, what bothers me, and Ramon, what bothers me about materialism is that we accept it without questioning it. And that's really what I wanted to do in the book. I want to say, time out, guys. Does this make any sense at all? Let's just look at this carefully, because when you take it apart, in my opinion, it doesn't make any sense. And that's why we need to move beyond it.
All right. So let's dig into the Big Bang a little bit. I mean, you go extensively into all the pros and cons there in the first half of the book, and you center quite a bit around the Big Bang and the different theories that have been out there, and the different problems with those theories. So what was it out of the Big Bang? What were some of the first things that caught your eye with the Big Bang theory that just didn't add up for you?
Well, I think it all begins with the question we all have when we're kids, which is, where did all this stuff come from? It's a question that is so magnified in the Big Bang because the Big Bang proponents have to fit the entire universe, which is something like 100 million galaxies, each with 100 million stars. They have to fit all that mass and energy into a little pinpoint thing they call a singularity. Okay? And the reason they do that, among other things, is that it sort of disguises the fact that they have no idea how something came from nothing. It's an assumption. And so it all begins with how could something come from nothing? That's the first question that we need to be careful about, because it is about the biggest assumption you can make. And if you don't get over that point, then I think you got to go back to the drawing board. Okay. So even if you get over that, which of course is a big obstacle, they then have to find how it was possible for an explosion. And we all have been around explosions, whether it's fireworks or whether it's watching TV shows with exploding bombs and ordnance. Explosions don't lead to order. How can order arise out of a random explosion? And so the scientists, the materialists, have to find a way for this explosion to go from chaos to order, which by the way, is exactly contrary to the second law of thermodynamics, which says that disorder increases with time, not order. So it's something that they've done a heck of a job disguising. And the one thing that really bothers me, I mean, those are the two big ones, but the one thing that really bothers me is that in order for the Big Bang to have led to our universe, it would have to have been finely tuned. In other words, it would have to the explosion would have had to burst apart with exactly the right force and energy in order to lead to this balanced, flat universe we have, this homogeneous universe that we have. Well, finely tuned is a term that is only used if there's an intelligence behind the scenes. And so the scientists have forgotten that their very creation myth or story, the Big Bang, is really a finely tuned explosion that requires an intelligence. This is why there's so much talk of the multiverse right now. The multiverse being the theory that there's actually a near infinity of other universes out there, because that, to me, is the only explanation that the materialists have left to explain the order in our universe. Because
wasn't the multiverse, didn't the multiverse come out of their lack of explanations for the mass in the universe? Isn't that where it began?
Well, the multiverse is really a function of a couple different theories, of string theory and of the quantum fluctuation model. But if you look at why, particularly in Hawking's book, The Grand Design, and the newspaper articles that advertise his book, The Grand Design, what they really need the multiverse for is to explain the fine tuning of the universe, and it's not just the Big Bang. There's other components of the world we live in that show a finely tuned creation, a finely tuned universe. And for some reason, and this is the big point here, for some reason we have a scientific community that believes that the only way to be scientific is to rule out an intelligence from design or from the universe, as if you can't be logical and still find a way to have an intelligent force. They think that it is giving up to creationism and intelligent design. And my response to that is it's not, because I think that creationism has its own problems. But if the evidence says there is design, then go where the evidence leads you. Just don't rule it out because of this prejudice you have against there being a mind behind creation.
Right.
Yeah, I find that a lot of scientists, when they get asked a simple question is, do you think there's some kind of intelligent design? They right away jump into creationism, and they just can't go beyond that. They're so close-minded to it, which is
right.
amazing to hear that, from a scientist's point of view.
Right. It's as if there's only two choices. As if the answer to life is a multiple choice exam with only two answers. It doesn't make any sense. So you're either a materialist scientist and you get to teach in all the universities, or you're a creationist and you're not giving any respect. I'm saying there can't just be two answers to the question. And you're exactly right, Ramon. In my opinion, it's sort of a knee-jerk reaction. These guys, the scientists, and they're smart folks, and I've had a lot of them on my own show. And believe me, many of them are not as strictly materialist as I am making them out to be. Many of them, such as Bernard Carr, obviously Fred Allen Wolf, and Henry Stapp. There's a lot of these guys that realize that the materialist picture does not fit together. It does not explain everything. But I really think I would agree with you, Ramon, that a fundamental problem we have right now is this false dichotomy. You're either a scientist or you're an intelligent designer, and you don't deserve any credibility. So it's something we need to get over.
Yeah, because especially when they have the arguments on the major medias, and they have the scientists and the creationists, and it's like, hey, there's some people missing in that argument there.
Right, exactly.
But going into quantum physics, I feel like that changed everything. That just changed the whole ball game. In the, what was it, 1920s with Planck.
Yeah. No, I think you're exactly right, and I think that one of the big problems we have right now, it's sort of a mystery, is that quantum theory teaches that the world is not actually a material creation, that there's not actually little ball bearings out there. I mean, I said, when Tom asked me about materialism, I said, the ultimate reality is a thing. Well, quantum theory says that the world is not made of things. It's made of wave equations and dream stuff and energy packets. It's not a solid, substantial world out there. There's thousands of books saying this. And, Ramon, I don't understand why the scientific paradigm has not shifted more towards incorporating the findings of quantum theory into the whole picture. Because if the world is not a thing, then it could only be a creation of the mind. And so that's where I think things need to go. And it's sort of like, hey, that's an awfully big change there. That's a dramatic, radical statement. Exactly correct. The question is, do you want to live your life following a false storyline, or do you want to give this more promising storyline a little chance, a little hope, and go down the other path? And so that's what I'm about. I'm about saying, okay, material. It's sort of like an old horse. We've ridden that horse as far as it's going to take us. It's time to get off that horse and get on a horse that's got more lasting power. And this way, we could all go to your 100th birthday party too. So
Yeah.
it all fits together.
The it also seems that everything has to be separated when it comes to, and I'm not even going to say scientific, because I see this in all realms, how everything is, it has to be separated. So, you get the example of, for example, you get these quarks, very small little particles that are able to exist in 2 points at the same time. Yet, when you mention it to scientists, like, okay, that means that we're made of this stuff, so are we existing in several places at the same time? No.
Yeah. No, that's exactly right. And it took about several decades for anyone to start applying quantum theory to ourselves. Because, and this is sort of what thing I do in my book, The Collapse of Materialism, which is that if quantum theory teaches that physical reality is really a condensed energy, it's not a thing, it's a wave, it's a packet of dream stuff, then that applies to us as well. And therefore, we are in the same level of reality as the world we live in. Okay, now I happen to think that is exactly the same way. That's another way of saying that we are part of a dream and we are dream stuff. It's exactly the same thing. It's just approaching it from the quantum level as opposed from the Eastern philosophy or idealist level. But I've had a lot of folks on my show who, the energy healers, and I'm sure you've had them on your show. Well, how is it possible that energy healing works unless the body was really energy? Exactly. I mean, that explains why it works. Well, so get over it. Don't you want it to work, or do you just want to get operated on and take pharmaceuticals the rest of your life? I mean, I just think it makes too much sense, and it explains so much of what is considered to be the occult or the paranormal, the supernatural. See, I'm really about trying to make this stuff legitimate. I'm trying to say, stop, guys. Stop making fun of Dean Radin and Charles Tart and all these legitimate paranormal researchers, because there is a way to explain them within a different model. And
right.
if you're just scientific about it, not closed-minded.
I brought up to a scientist one time, and I was just amazed on his reaction to it. Dean Radin's whole experiment, where basically they put your I forgot what it's called, the little pads on your skin.
The random number generators?
No. The little pads on your skin, and then they show you different images.
Yeah.
And how people start reacting to the images several seconds before they actually see it.
Yeah.
And I was saying, what is that? And he just gave me some. It didn't even sound scientific at all.
Yeah.
His explanation to it, and I was like, really?
I think it's a Gans field. Is that what I think it's a Gans?
The Galvin. I can't remember exactly.
Yeah. Well, it's really it's an amazing thing we have out there, because the scientific reaction to people like Dean Radin is either to ignore his findings or to find some little error or some procedural mistake and sort of expand that to dismiss the entire body of research. I've had Dean Radin on my show, and he is as straight-laced as they come.
Right.
He is a solid researcher, and so I also think that if you're going to, if I was putting together a curriculum, I'd definitely put his book, The Conscious Universe, on my curriculum. But people want to open their minds to this. I think that's a really good study in this whole area.
Yeah, I think in the past 100-something years, there've been several very hardcore studies into these realms, like the stuff that was done at Duke University. I find it completely amazing. But they were, when they were coming up, like, okay, we have scientific fact. They never disproved the whole thing. They just, like you said, found little things like, well, maybe they could have faked it this way, but never proved that they faked the experiments, and then just threw out the whole thing.
Yeah, and this is what's really amazing. This is what I try to do in my book, is that if you're leading the class, if you are heading up the university departments, you're able to spend money on research, such as for string theory, that doesn't have any credibility either. I mean, there are books written. There's two great books written. One's by Lee Smolin, who called The Trouble with Physics. He says in that book that not only is there no experiment that can prove string theory true, no one's even thought of an experiment that might prove string theory true. Yet we're spending all this money and time researching things like string theory when we have the paranormal researchers coming out with real data showing that something's up, something's going on here, and we're ignoring it. See, I think there's a problem there. I might be the only one, but I just don't think that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, they're doing it on a shoestring budget too.
Right.
I mean,
right.
Yeah. I mean, there's no money out there being given for. I mean, well, we have Pear Labs and stuff like that. There's a few universities that are spending a little bit of money out there on them, but it's few and far between. I mean, the materialist sciences, the academia is so well entrenched on this planet, and it's just so dominant right now that it's it's a tough row to hoe right now, trying to break that paradigm and bring them to some sense of sanity. Because when I look at all the evidence out there, I mean, just flat out evidence, the material evidence, I'll go that far to call it material evidence, because there is material evidence out there for a lot of these phenomena. And them to just brush it aside and continue, with their grant money and pumping out the same college books, and it's frustrating. But what do you think? How do you think we're doing along those lines? Do you think we're making ground as far as breaking into a new level of consciousness?
Well, I have a couple things here, because I think that's the big question, Tom. First of all, one of my favorite quotes, and Ramon, you mentioned Max Planck earlier, but he said something like, "Science progresses funeral by funeral." Right. Sometimes, my feeling is if you beat them, outlive them. So I think it's a generational thing, Tom. I mean, I'm optimistic that as the young folks keep coming up the ranks with a more open-minded approach, a more exploratory approach, more probing, questioning approach, that we're going to see the walls of materialism collapse. I wrote an article somewhere. It was something like, "Let's not wait for the funeral. Let's bring down materialism now, because I really think that, I don't really want to wait a couple hundred years before this to happen. I do think it's in all of our best interest to accelerate it. So, but my first answer is, it may take the old generation dying off and a new generation rising up. Number two, I mean, we've all been in this field for a while. If you look back 30 years ago and you went to the bookstore, how many books were there that were talking about quantum theory, spirituality, questioning this stuff? There weren't a lot. There was the Tao Physics, Dancing Wooloo Masters, a couple other ones. But today, there are hundreds of books. And there are more people. I just got done reading Biocentrism by Robert Lanza, who is also famous for stem cell research. His book supports my book. He says a lot of the same things. Now, I'm more radical, but his book goes exactly the same direction. And then there's Rupert Sheldrake. So I think we're seeing sort of a grassroots thing going on here. I don't know how we're going to, and I'm using the word we, in a general sense, how anyone's going to change out the professorships in the leading universities. But I think that's what's got to happen eventually if we're gonna make this occur. And I think it's going to happen. This, Thomas Kuhn wrote one of the great science books of the 20th century, The Structure of Scientific Revolutions. And there's only one thing you got to know about that book, and that is, he said, most of science is called normal science, where people keep repeating the same thing over and over again, just like they're doing in the Large Hadron Collider, all these physicists doing a little research projects within the normal paradigm. And then all of a sudden, there's facts that the current paradigm cannot explain, and then the paradigm changes. That's what's going on here, Tom. So I don't know. What do you think? I mean, I'm optimistic. I don't know whether to count this in decades or centuries, though. That's my problem.
Yeah, I think right now where we're at is that we're going to start getting people who are applying all this knowledge that's being put out now. They're starting to really get it and understand, I mean, to a point of knowing within the being. And we're starting to see people manifest these amazing abilities and skills. And I think that's, from what I see, I think that's going to be the one that tips the scales, is people doing amazing things on a wide scale. I mean, just in the people that I rub shoulders with here, I've seen people that I never dreamt would have any interest in anything outside of the box that have jumped in with both feet and are exhibiting, intuition and, having premonitions and all sorts of different things that are popping up for them. And these are people that aren't really working on it, aren't really, well, I can't really say that, but you know what I mean? They're not in earnest, diving in like some of us do, where this is our life. We're looking at all this stuff day by day by day, after day after day, and trying to bring it out. But I think that's going to be the thing that tips the scales, is the undeniable proof by exhibition.
Yeah, I think that's definitely a component, because in my opinion, I mean, it's going to take real world experiences, right, I think, to change minds. I mean, and I wanted to lay out the argument in a book, but I'm hoping that it resonates with people who've had a lot of synchronicistical experiences, that have had paranormal experiences, maybe life after death, out-of-body experiences, and say, oh, well, maybe I'm not crazy after all. Maybe this is part of the real world, and we have been shutting that down because we've been told we're little robots. That's and I had a conversation recently on my own show where I got into this similar topic, and I was just saying, it wouldn't be great if like Richard Dawkins had some kind of out of body experience. I mean, if he had some synchronistical experience that he simply could not write off. I mean, that would be really cool.
Right.
It's sort of like, it always amazes me. It's sort of like people that smoke cigarettes and then they quit. They become the most anti-smoking people of all. I mean, those of us who haven't smoked, I mean, I don't really care whether people smoke or not. But maybe we'll get a lot of converters to the cause, and that will really help. That will really help.
Right.
Yeah. One of the things that I think, for me, I think once the quantum computer starts getting into the people's houses, I think that's when it will change that whole paradigm, because the way that operates proves, a lot of the things you're talking about.
Yeah. Yes. Well, I mean, yeah. How could particles be in two places at once? And that's what quantum theory. That's what the quantum computing is about. It's about superposition of the particles. They're in two places at once. Now, don't ask me to explain how the thing, all the nitty-gritty details, but it's based upon particles occupying two places at once. And so you're exactly right, Ramon. If you thought we were living in a billiard ball or ball-bearing world, we're not, because quantum computing shows that we're living in a much different world, a magical world. And this is what is we put the wrong glasses on. We live in a magical world. It's an enchanted place, and we have forgotten that because we think that to be scientists we can't have any of that magic or any of that, that hocus pocus. We have to live we have to have our white jackets on, and we have to pretend as if we're only robots that are going to rust away and join up with the stardust from whence we came. Because I think that it really, and that's what drives me. Asked me to be in this. It drives me because I know that this is a magical world. And the reason I hope it resonates with a lot of people is because we are magical creatures. We are unlimited creatures, and it's sort of like someone tells you, "Oh, I could be a divine being after all. I always thought I was pretty cool, but now I could actually be something other than a robot." Wow, I was like, "Whoa," it's a much better story. It's a much better story.
Yeah, there's I want to ask you about something. First, I'll ask this: what did you feel about Einstein theory? Do you feel like he missed the ball, or he was right on the money?
You mean relativity or general relativity, or the?
Light not being able to go faster, not being able to go faster than the speed of light. Light being made of electric and magnetic only.
Well, yeah, I mean, he has the most famous equation of all time, which supports everything we're saying, which is E equals mc squared. Energy equals the mass times the speed of light squared. So energy is the same thing as mass. Mass, or matter, this materialistic stuff, is really condensed energy. Exactly. It's really energy. It's not mindless stuff. I want to say something about Einstein that people forget, and that is he was a heck of a humanist. He was a real person. He was a humanist first. He cared about people. He fought against the bomb. He was against war. He was a great man, not just a great scientist.
And a lucid dreamer.
Right. He was, he has so many quotes. I quote him a couple of times in my book. I would part company with him, and I do quote him in the beginning, where he came right out very clearly and said that the underlying assumption that he was making in his theories was that there was an independent world apart from human experience, that there was really a material world out there. And that's one reason why he can never accept quantum theory. See, he never accepted quantum theory because he, quote unquote, didn't think God played dice with the world. Right? Remember that famous quote of his.
Right.
But I don't. But I think that he was wrong in assuming the independent world. But he is treated like a god. Him and Darwin are like the gods of materialism. So anything he says is sort of taken as gospel truth, although if you read the current scientific magazines, more and more people are questioning Einstein. He's considered to have lost the quantum debate to Bohr. And what needs to come down, though, is the assumption of the independent material world. Because when you say independent material world, it's the same thing as saying that there is a mechanical world outside of spirit or mind. And that I don't think is true. And I think that everything we're talking about shows it's not true. How could mind over matter work? How could a placebo effect work? How could energy healing work if the physical world was absolutely disconnected from belief, spirit, intention? Those things would never work. They do work. So therefore, the assumption of there being an independent world is false. So a long-winded way to saying that I think Einstein is a great man, but I think some of his theories about reality have been proven to be false.
Yeah, the reason why I brought him up was because I was listening to an interview with Charles Hall. I don't know if you're familiar with him.
I don't think so.
And he was a military man who was in the military, and he was in one of these secret bases, and he had contact with these aliens, and he worked with them for a while and stuff like that. And basically, to make a long story short, he was saying that one of the reasons we don't understand how is it that their ships work is because we're looking at light only from, magnetism and an electric field. And he says that there's more to that than scientists know of. Being there's more parts to light than what we know. And that's the reason why we can't understand going, from one star to another. We think in more like, okay, let's fill up the gas tank with a moon-sized gas tank and then head off to the next star.
Yeah, there's something, Tom had asked me earlier about the Big Bang, but there's a couple examples from science showing that the speed of light is not the maximum speed. One of the sort of disguised flaws with the Big Bang, it's something called the horizon problem, which is that how is it that opposite ends of the universe have the same temperature? Because they could never have communicated with each other, even going at the speed of light. Okay, and so it's one of these things that, frankly, I think you could have a very interesting TV show that would be sort of the counterpoint to the Cosmos, that would talk about the mysteries, the unanswered questions of science. But the way it's packaged to the general public, it's as if they have it all figured out.
Right.
But when you look at it, and it's not all figured out. And a lot of these mysteries point towards design. See, and this is why it's not on TV, because the leading scientists don't want any hints of design. They don't want anything strange because they view it as giving in. And so it's time to I think you got to question everything, Ramon and Tom. I think that's the best, and that would apply to religion, and that would apply to science. Because if it's true, it's going to remain standing. And that's what it's all about. Question, let's question telepathy. I don't think it's true. Well, read some studies. Read Charles Tart or Rhine, J.B. Rhine, and Dean Radin. Come to your own conclusions, and see if it makes sense to you. But don't close it off without even thinking about it.
Yeah. You brought up a good point where, the universe is the same temperature on opposite sides. And, you have that whole thing with the electron. When you have two electrons, you switch the way it's moving. And then the other one on the other side, what was it, 11 miles away, started moving at the same time. So that, for me personally, that proves the whole speed of light thing, because what they start saying is when you do that, then it goes back in time, gives the information, and then goes back forward in time, and that's why it's able to switch so fast. And what?
Yeah. Well, yeah, it's sort of, one of the hardest philosophers to understand, although you don't need to know that much about them, except some of the basic principles, which I'm going to mention for a second. His name was Immanuel Kant, K-A-N-T. He's probably considered top 3 of all time, him and Plato, and probably Hume. But Kant said that the mind imposes order and structure upon the world in order for us to have experiences. See, I've just summarized Kant's philosophy in 2 sentences.
Right.
But that is so important, because Kant said that it's us. We give meaning to experience. And so where I'm going with this is that we want to live in a structured universe. We don't want to live in a nightmare. We want to live something with organization and order. And so we have, this is why this is such an exciting field, I think, because science has a new beginning. We start looking at things differently and really try to figure out where the magic came from in the world we live in. So there's a lot here to explore, and I'm hoping that we're going to see the days of a new science, an open-minded science.
I like the way that you describe the way you see the world as a dream. It's kind of a bit to wrap your mind around when you really think about it. You think about, I had a dream last night, and it seemed to be, maybe it was something I ate, but I had it was all just me, and this whole world, it seemed to be me. Then I created that world within my mind. And then you come out here in this world and, I can't do the things that I can do in my dream in this world. And how do I rectify that?
Well, first of all, in my opinion, there's a couple steps here. I said earlier that the Big Bang, the major flaw of it was that science has to assume all the matter in the universe. They have to assume as given, as if someone just handed them enough matter to create all the stars in the sky. We know from our dreams and from hallucinations, and even something as simple as getting knocked on the head and seeing stars, that our minds are capable of conjuring up a real seeming world from nothing. Okay? So we know that a physical world, a world that looks like a external physical world, can be created from our mind. It's an illusion of sorts, but it can occur. We have individual experiences of it. So we know that we have the power of the dream. What I'm saying is that our night dreams stand in the same relation to our individual minds as the public world stands in relation to the united mind. Okay? Now, just to show you that this is not, I'm not the first one ever to say this, there was a Sir James Jean, one of the early 20th century scientists who was one of the leading physicists of his era, he wrote a book called The Mysterious Universe, and what he said there was, quote, creations of an individual mind may reasonably be called less substantial than creations of a universal mind. Okay. So we live in a united dream. It's exactly the same world we've always lived in. Nothing changes. We can't control the world individually for the simple reason that we're dreaming together. We're part of the same storyline. The idea is to unite the dreamers to a common goal, to make the truth of the dream on the same level as the law of gravity. Okay? When you jump out of a building, you know you're going to fall because we have so much trust, belief in the law of gravity. We need to ingrain the fact that we are dreaming a united dream with the same power and authenticity as the law of gravity. Imagine if we pulled that within ourselves and took that as a scientific principle. Now all of a sudden we have a uniting theme, a united theme for humankind, which is to build a better world on Earth. It's a world where we could all fulfill our dreams. So that's really, it's very optimistic, very idealistic, but where I come down on this is that it's possible, it's the real world, and why not hitch your wagon to that star instead of just giving up and saying it can never happen?
Wow.
So,
yeah,
good stuff.
that's true.
So we're at the top of the hour already, and wow, I just love this kind of a show that just flies by so damn fast. So anyways, we're going to continue on in the members section, guys, and if you're out there listening on one of those other medias, the iTunes, the YouTubes, the Vimos, or wherever you happen to be listening at, and would like to listen to the rest of it, I urge you to pop on over to the 100thmonkeyradio.com and check us out over there. Phil, where can people pick up this book at?
well, it's on Amazon.com and Barnes & Noble, and that's probably the easiest way to find it. It is in many bookstores, but I don't know where people are listening in from, so just plug it in Amazon, and that's the easiest thing to do.
And your radio show, where can they tune in at?
Okay, if you plug into Google Conversations Beyond Science and Religion, and that which is a podcast at webtalkradio.net. Every week I have a different guest on. I try to get anyone from the scientist to the spiritualist. We probably have some overlapping guests, but I explore many of the themes that I'm talking about here on my radio show as well.
It's good stuff, too.
What day does it air usually, your show?
Every Monday, a new show is posted.
Oh, that's perfect.
Yeah.
Good stuff.
So.
Good stuff. All right, guys. Well, we'll see you in the second hour. Condemnation without investigation is the height of ignorance.
The love you deny is the pain you carry.
Namaste, my friends.
Meditators, global banking gladiators, glowing tubes that mesmerize, netting minds like butterflies, hapless flying in the night like moths misled into a light. Information overload, trust me, then do what you're told. Tell me who you think I am, give me meaning in a can. Just tell me the truth. If you haven't got a clue, then stop pretending that you do. information prepackaged and aimed to please conveniently processed leads. Just tell me the truth. Stop pretending that you do.
Only the free can tell the truth, then the truth